Hello, fourth graders. We're going to focus on a plant bulb. And we were going to take a look at a paperwhite bulb. And a paperwhite is basically a flowering plant. It's a daffodil, you know those yellow flowers at Easter time? Except it's got white petals. Paperwhite, it's in the name. And we're going to look at the internal and external structures of the bulb. And just like with all living organisms, plant or animal, those internal and external structures help the organism to survive, grow, and or reproduce. And some may help do two of the three. Some, it may only be for one function of those. So let's take a look at our Paperwhite Vault. Had we been in school, you'd have your scientist notebook. Now, with this, we see external and internal structures. And what they did is they kind of did like a dissection, like a cross-cut view of this. So like if we cut into the bulb, we'd see some of these structures. Oftentimes with the bulb, we don't. It's kind of like when you go buy onions at the store. An onion is a bulb, and it's very similar to that. And so, you know how the onions have layers? Well, there's layers inside of some of these. And so we look at this, and here we are. Here are our layer structures. Okay, so we start up here with the chute, that big thing coming up out of the middle. Scales, so hence why they did the cross section. The bud, we wouldn't normally see that bud. It'd be buried down inside all of those layers. The basal disc, right there, and we wouldn't see that too well unless we did the cross cutting. The tunic, lateral bulb, and the roots. And so we're going to check out on these next few slides what each structure is and the function of it, and kind of give you some information about how that structure helps the plant to survive, grow, and or reproduce. Okay? And so don't worry about this part here because you don't have that scientist notebook. All you'll have is labeling the bulb to do with this activity on Seesaw. So we've got the chute right there, and this is the first part of the bulb that emerges from the ground as the bulb begins to grow. So basically it's kind of the first leaf. So its job is to begin to absorb sunlight. Well, by absorbing sunlight, it helps it to survive and makes the food so it can grow. Scales. So the scales are a special leaf or leaves that protect the bud and store food for the plant. So let's think about that. It gives it that first bit of food that it'll need to grow. Because if we look at that shoot at the top, it's not a very big leaf to absorb that. So it's going to need to push. And this, mind you, is buried under the ground usually. All right, so it really needs to have all of these scales need to be providing that stored up energy to help it to grow at first. All right. And it helps it survive because it gives it a layer of cushion and protection around it. So we've got that bud, that part right there, that central part. And it's the center of the bulb that will eventually develop into the flowers of the plant. Now, sometimes they'll shoot up out multiple pieces for different buds. So if this helps to produce the flower eventually, the flower is the reproductive part of the plant. So this the bud helps with reproduction, making more, the next generation of this plant, more flowers, more of the paperwhites, more bulbs or well, more flower plants. The basal disc, this is kind of like the baby part of the stem. It connects the flower scales and roots together. And so it's kind of this go-between. So like as the water and minerals are absorbed from the roots, it goes into the basal disc, and then the basal disc then transports them to these other parts. So it helps it to survive. It's a connecting part. And so that aids in the survival. The tunic. You might know what a tunic is. A tunic is another word for a shirt. So think about that. And there it is. A shirt protects us. The tunic on a bulb, it's kind of like the that brownish red skin on the onion. That brownish red skin on the onion protects it. And so it's a papery outer covering of the bulb. How does it help it survive? Protection. All right, there it is. The lateral bulb. It's this little offshoot of the bulb. It's small bulbs that develop from an existing bulb that produce new, smaller bulbs each year. So is that survival, growth, or reproduction? It's another form of reproduction. It can make more plants for you. And sometimes what you have to do with bulb plants after a few years is you have to dig them up and break them apart and move the bulbs elsewhere, because if you keep them all in one spot, eventually they're competing over that water and nutrients, and so they'll begin to kind of die off. And so what you do is you go in and you break them apart and pull those little pieces off, and you've got extra plants that you can take and go plant elsewhere. So it's reproduction. The roots. I think we know about roots. Structures that pull water and nutrients from the soil, rocks, into the bulb, depending on where you plant these. When we were going to plant these in the classroom, I was going to put these in little cups with rocks so we could really see the root structure. Some plants will grow in rocks. I have some at my house. And so, how does this help it survive? This helps it survive and grow by taking in nutrients, water, minerals. It helps the plants to grow. Okay, so you can see my reflection right there. I'm behind the camera. And so all of those parts help the plant to grow. Make sure you go back. You can rewatch this video to help you label the 7 parts of the bulb. Drag and drop those on the Seesaw app. Okay? Also, you will have a seeds and bulbs comparison. And so check that one out as well. Bye.